This cowl is made from recycled plastic bottles, and it is made using the Tunisian Crochet bump stitch, and I have used two different coloured yarns. And this is the yarn I used. It is super chunky. Knits Recycled by Wendy. I used two colours, one is grey and the other is a burnt orange. The crochet hook size recommended on the label is 8mm, but because this is a Tunisian crochet project, I'm going to use a 10mm 14 inches long Tunisian crochet hook. For slip stitching I've used a 9mm ordinary crochet hook. Also required is, of course, a pair of scissors, a wide-eyed needle for securing loose ends, a stitch marker, and a tape measure. With the bump stitch, any number of stitches can be used, odd or even, and I'm aiming for a cowl that will be around 7 inches wide, and for that I am going to chain 18. The cowl will take just under 100 grams of yarn, that is equivalent to 92 meters or 100 yards. So 2 balls of yarn, you can make 2 cowls. The length of the chain is actually 9 inches, but this will shrink to around 7 inches after casting on. So I'm casting on the easy way because the ends will be slip stitched together. I have chained 18, so there should be 18 loops on the hook. As always, it is well worth counting to make sure. So the first row is grey, and the next row I'm going to introduce the burnt orange colour, and this is done by adding it at the chain 1 stage of the return pass. So grab the new colour with the hook, pull through to chain 1, and then add a stitch marker to indicate the end of the row, and with the second colour working yarn at the back do a normal Tunisian crochet return pass, pulling the yarn through 2 loops all the way along the row until the end. And for the bump stitch, it is a good idea to keep the tension fairly loose so that the hook can be inserted into the bumps on the forward pass quite easily. And that is why I'm slackening the yarn off by unravelling the ball. So this is the end of the return pass. There is 1 loop left on the hook, and now insert the hook into the back bump at the top of the second vertical bar, yarn over and pull up a loop, and continue working into the top back bumps of each stitch until the end of the row. At the end of the row there is a choice of either putting the last stitch into the space marked with the stitch marker, but for a better result with 2 colours I think it is better to insert the hook into the back bump at the end of the row. Yarn over and pull up a loop. And now check the number of loops on the hook because it is quite easy to gain or lose stitches with the bump stitch. So now for the return pass, I'm going to chain 1 with the first colour, keeping the working yarn at the back, and then do a normal Tunisian crochet return pass, marking the end of the row with a stitch marker as always. And keep going until there is one loop left on the hook. And you can see the two colours work together really nicely. The forward pass is as before, that is inserting the hook into the top back bump, yarn over, pull up a loop, and that's the top back bump of the second stitch. And continue working into the top back bumps all the way along the row until the end. And for the last stitch, insert the hook into the top back bump, not the marked space at the end of the row. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Now bring the yarn of the second colour to the back, chain 1 with the second colour and mark the space at the end of the row. And now I'm just going to check that there are 18 loops on the hook, and now do a normal Tunisian crochet return pass until there is one loop left on the hook. Now you can see how the fabric is building nicely with these two colours. For the forward pass, as before, insert the hook into the top back bump of the second stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and continue working along the row until the end. Working the last stitch into the top back bump at the end of the row, above the stitch marker. Now move the yarn from the first colour to the back, chain 1, and mark the end of the row. Just check there are 18 loops on the hook, and then do a normal Tunisian crochet return pass. and keep going alternating colours at the chain 1 stage of the return pass until the fabric is of the required length. And the length of the fabric is 26 inches, which is perfect. So now I'm going to do the return pass with the first colour, so bring the first colour to the back, chain 1 with the first colour, mark the end of the row and do a normal Tunisian crochet return pass until there is one loop left on the hook. And now there is one loop on the hook. I am going to change from a Tunisian crochet hook to a 9mm crochet hook for slip stitching the ends of the cowl together. As always, I like to add a twist that makes the cowl sit better when it is worn, and insert the hook into the end of the row on the opposite side, yarn over and pull through both loops, and continue slip stitching the two ends together. I always think it is worth slip stitching ends rather than sewing them together, because with slip stitching, if the cowl is too long or too short, the slip stitch can easily be undone and the length of the cowl rectified. The last slip stitch goes into the marked space at the end of the row and the opposite stitch on the other side. Yarn over and pull through all the loops. And before cutting the yarn, it is worth securing the loop with the stitch marker so that the cowl can then be tried on for size. And this is the appearance of the slip stitched seam. There is a bit of a ridge on this side, but on the other side there is no ridge. Finally, cut the yarn and then secure the loose ends. Because there are two colours, there are two loose ends that need securing, and they are close together, so the first thing to do is tie them together securely using a reef knot, and then the loose ends can be sewn in and cut. And here is the completed two-tone bump stitch cowl, made from yarn that was created from recycled plastic bottles. But of course any yarn will do, and the whole project should take around 3 hours if a chunky yarn is used.